The unranked PP record is sort of a weird idea, because while ideally it would just be maps that are normal or slightly odd, but simply lack the rank status, it's a bit more complicated than that, because of two words that don't sound all too great together. PP Exploitation. Everyone knows the system is flawed, but just how far can people go with it? This is a short history of the unranked PP record. We're going to start by making a few categories. First, unranked or loved maps that lack any version of PP exploitation. The next is exploitation with some boundaries. Think of it like a Mirror's Edge glitchless speedrun.
Another thing here, you get a hard landing from that fall, but by neutral kicking, you can avoid the hard landing animation.
That doesn't sound very legit.
No, but it's not any of the glitches I listed earlier, so it's fine, okay?
You can do pretty much anything, as long as it isn't one of the two exploits that we're going to touch on later. And then third is no boundaries, which is the same as the last one, but it includes the two exploits that basically destroy the game. For this category, everything that doesn't give PP and is also a map that doesn't exploit the game counts. And for this one, we're going to begin all the way back in April 2015, when Index got the first ever ranked 600 PP on a qualified map. Since although qualified maps currently give no PP, at the time they did, making it a very cool first 600. But the map was actually disqualified after, ironically enough, because there's a slider on the map that they said drained too much HP with Hard Rock. Yeah. Luckily, he would re-FC it after and get 600 again. And after this incident, qualified maps would stop giving PP, and all was well. That is, until September of 2018, and the race for 900. Because after almost 2 years of players racing to get a 900 PP play, Kakizi got one on an unranked map, while basically not even trying. Which was really sad, until about 2 days later when Karthi got the first ranked 900, and once again, all was well. Until November 2nd of 2018, when Idki is approaching number 1, and is currently one of the only 2 players, along with Karthi, to have a ranked 900. At this time, Sotarks had just qualified his version of Cry Thunder, which was pretty clearly one of the best Space Dream farm maps in the game. Idki then FCs it with Hard Rock for 980 PP. But by this time, qualified maps don't give PP. And the funny part is, the map was never disqualified, meaning that the rules that had been made because of Index's PP record being taken away were the ones that had now taken Idki's. Luckily, after the map was ranked, he'd be able to get the score again with just slightly worse accuracy. And, once again, all was well. With one little exception. When Whitecat got an 1000 PP play offline, which would have been the 4th ever, and although this doesn't seem that tragic anymore, since Whitecat has over 10 1000 PP plays, for a couple of months after his unban, he actually struggled a lot to get one. Whitecat is also the only player with 2 unranked 1Ks, since he also got one on Fiery's anime ban when it was qualified. Speaking of Fiery's version of anime ban, there was also Flying Tuna, who got his top play on the map twice. First in February of 2019 with an 840 PP play, which was also the highest star rating FC at the time, and then again when he got his first 900 on the map while it was qualified. He then proceeded to never play the map again, never getting the score, which he'd made obvious was exceptionally easy for him. But all the scores I've mentioned so far are pretty standard, and basically the same as you'd see on any ranked map, with most of them actually being qualified or ranked maps that were done offline. But there are others that are sort of on the edge between normal and exploitative, but that I'll count here. Like scores on maps such as Goodbye Moonmen, that are really short and can sort of be done with RNG, but still take an incredible amount of skill. This section also has what I think is the magnum opus of this kind of play, and almost of the entire category. GN's 1000 PP play with Easy and Flashlight, mostly because of these jumps. This one really is the limit of what's considered non-cheesed, because although the diff spike of the map is legit back and forth cross-map jumps, which makes it seem almost exploitative, is that really all that different than a few ranked maps? I also included this because the ream that's needed for the map is just insane. And then, there are some maps that go further, to the point where they get into... This is where things start to get a bit crazy. First with the low-key exploits, starting with back and forths, like the very technical first 10-star FC, which was done with back and forth 250 BPM corner jumps for 10 seconds. This definitely takes some skill, but there's also a huge element of luck, since although when Batted did the first 10-star version, it almost made some sense since he's an incredible aim player, when he did the same thing with smaller circles for an 11-star FC worth 1,200 PP, it was pretty clear that it was not quite equivalent to normal maps. But this is really just the surface level, since we can go much, much deeper. Starting with the stack exploit, which I think this video puts pretty well.
Okay. 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 So I got this map, and it's 7 stars. Okay. So we go in the editor, and we go to the editor, and we see this part, right? We see this part, right? Okay. And nothing right there, right? But and you know how you just see how there's nothing in this map that's 7 stars, right? but you see this? let's put the styling and see the 2. All right. Okay. So now we get.
This was actually a glitch in the game, since what's happening is that for the entire stack on the left side, the game assumes that this one position is where all of the objects are, because they're auto-stacked in the editor. And then, the line on the right side is actually manually placed, meaning the game thinks the placements are where they actually are on the playfield. And so, basically, what the game ends up thinking is that you're jumping between the first object and every object on the right side repeatedly, meaning that while barely moving your cursor, you're hitting 400 BPM cross-map jumps. And this only gets more insane when you put flashlight on, since the game thinks you're doing the same thing, but with flashlight. And so, with high BPM and flashlight, you can achieve nearly infinite PP, with the most infamous instance being when Azer did this.
There we go. 2,251 PP, boys.
Azer had set the PP record. Sorry. But yeah, the exploit was pretty busted. And although I'm not 100% positive because of other changes, this exploit seems to be unpatched, since the map is actually worth more PP after the hidden rebalance buffed speed. And this was basically the most PP anyone had gotten. That is, until one more exploit was found that breaks things much, much more than the previous 2. Previously, there have been corner jumps that are only really exploits because you can cheese them, and an actual glitch that exploits the game. But the one I'm about to talk about can go so much further that it makes the other 2 pale in comparison. It's the invisible spinner exploit. It's sort of like the previous one, except for one big difference. The spinners don't actually need to be clicked. And because of questionable game mechanics, you don't actually need to spin at all to get a 300 on the spinners. And this is what the game thinks you're doing. So yeah, basically infinite BPM streams and impossible to miss cross-screen jumps that make things go a bit crazy, with plays upwards of 20,000 PP possible. And for this reason, I excluded this in the other category, since it gets pretty boring seeing the highest PP play basically be normal maps that just give 20 times the PP. And the last thing to mention is touchscreen, which I've also put in the forbidden category, since although jumps with touchscreen were nerfed, they are still calculated like jumps on tablet, which doesn't make much sense. But generally on ranked maps, it doesn't matter too much. But on unranked ones, you can do this. Yeah, that was another 20,000 PP play, and it just goes to show how busted the game can be, and that there may be a reason that not all maps are ranked. But without further ado, let's go through the PP record for each category. For unranked, real maps, including qualified ones, it would be White Cat's 1000 PP play on Fiery's anime ban. For unranked real maps excluding qualified, it would be GN's 1K if you want to count that, or Kakizi's 900 if you don't. For the unranked without the insane exploits, it would likely go to some random person using the stack exploit. But I'll give it to Azer because his video was what really popularized the exploit. And then for unranked anything goes, Goink's 28,000 PP play is the highest I could find, and probably the highest anyone has achieved ever. So, hopefully, your takeaway from this video is that Osu is busted and that Goink is the best player in the entire game. And I think that's pretty awesome.